Hello, my name is Damari Cervantes.
And my name is Ryan Feckraut.
And my name is Ayeneh.
And welcome to Sedaye Daneshjoo. Today, we're going to be talking about clinical experiences. So I'm very excited to be able to ask our co-cast about their clinical experiences. Of course, clinical experiences are very important for students as they are embarking on their journey to medicine. They are really allowed to immerse themselves, and it really impacts their future. And I'm really curious to ask you guys about how it has impacted your outlook, not only on medicine, but also on life in general and healthcare, and also what has been really important for you guys.
Yeah, let's expose it. Ida and I are at the kind of tail end of our different clinical experiences, yeah. Getting ready or applying to medical school right now. So we're able to look retrospectively on the things that informed, whether or not they directly informed or indirectly informed our decision to go into medicine, or like I could talk about this too, telling me like what careers I don't want to do. Yeah, really excited to share this. I think this is pretty important.
So for both of you, which came first? Do you think that you kind of knew that you wanted to go into medicine or into a doctor program initially, or did you have those clinical experiences first that then led you to say, like, okay, it's this specifically for me?
I'll go first. I wanted to be a doctor first, and then life kind of got in the way. I took on different roles in my life that occupied a lot of mental headspace, and it's just a big excuse for I was not totally sure about going into medicine. Yeah, I had that prototype seedling of something like a sick relative, or you yourself get sick and you see the doctor and you have a good experience. Or maybe there's something that you're critical of. But that started, and then I kind of got lost along the way. And then I slowly built up, because once I started getting into that clinical experience, the clinical experience came after a sort of a period of I'll use disillusionment. And then I started realizing that I was right all along, and that I really should just go for the medical degree. Ida?
I would say I kind of knew before I got into it. Seedling for me started early on before I got into my clinical experience, and it's the similar thing that Ryan was saying, where it was just mostly seeing my family members going through like a medical journey or something happening, or just myself going through something. Also, I think there's that dynamic of growing up in an immigrant family and seeing how healthcare looks different for them. And I think that was mostly my seedling, and I knew I wanted to pursue physician, but I honestly had a lot of questions at the time. I was 19. I was wondering, well, what's the difference between, a physician and a PA or an NP? And I knew that the only way I could really have a deeper understanding of those is by, gaining that clinical experience and working.
So how did you guys come across those initial opportunities for getting clinical experiences? Well, I guess going along with that question is also, what were your first clinical experiences, and how did you get them?
I did EMT. It's a little more common. It's like one of those like paid positions that it's pretty well known that you can, people seek it out because you can work with your own patients. Depending on your jurisdiction, you can do more or less clinically, but for the most part, you're going to be doing transports from different facilities with assisting different levels of providers, nurse, ALS, or paramedic, and potentially even respiratory therapy. Even I've heard of physician transports. And then 911. 911 is kind of a different beast, but that's what a lot of different like pre-health people seek out, because you get expedited experience, hands-on experience.
Yeah, definitely. Similarly, I also did the EMT program. I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to do that or CNA, but because at the time I'm a transfer student, my community college offered that course. And so if I had taken that course, it would have been free because California has the first 2 years of community college free. So I was like, okay, I'll take advantage of this opportunity and see what it brings. It was my first semester before the pandemic happened and all that stuff. So I did that. And then about like 3 years later, I decided, or 2 years later, I decided to do my phlebotomy certificate as well.
So you did the double whammy, the EMT and the phlebotomy.
Yeah.
And did you think about doing ED Tech with that?
That's what I wanted to do, and to be honest, I wanted to work directly in the emergency room. That didn't end up happening.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
ED Tech jobs, so working in EMT, a lot of the EMTs wanted to transition to that. It's not what you think it is. Like, it's not just like a job you apply for. If you know, you know. You need to, and really you do need to know, because you need to know somebody to get one of those jobs. I don't know if you encountered that trying to pursue ED Tech, but every successful ED Tech applicant that I knew that transitioned to EMT to ED Tech, they were rotating in and out of that hospital regularly. Like, hey, I'm still here. Hey, I'm still here. And they put their resume on the table of the hiring manager. I mean, it's that direct. And, you know, there's a level of nepotism as well with other positions, but it's really competitive to get those.
Yeah, and I think that sort of goes into, I was a bit naive at the time, and I was like, okay, I really want to do an ED Tech, and that's my main goal. But after, you know, my experiences like working as an ER scribe and talking to all the ED Techs, I've like noticed that most of them had like 9 years of like ambulance experience, and then they transitioned to the ED Tech, and most of them were all strong and buff,
Yeah.
to be honest. So, and yeah, a lot of them did have that like long-standing connections with like the ER team overall. I think that definitely did play a role, but you know, you kind of learn as you go on, and there's like some things I think that I initially had planned for myself, it didn't go that way, but then I ended up, you know, having other experiences I think were fulfilling.
Yeah, that's really great. How did you choose, like for you example, for Ryan, how did you decide that you wanted to be an EMT over doing other things? Because I think for you, Ida, it was like you said that you had kind of a plan or like something that you wanted to do, but Ryan, I don't think.
Okay, so my story is a little funny. In high school, I was in all these different types of athletics training, thinking that I wanted to be a Green Beret. And so I was like really hardcore training, and I wanted to do this thing called 18 Delta, I believe, something like that. It's basically you work as a Green Beret, but you also kind of work as like a third world country doctor. And they train you with EMT plus education. And that plus was pretty substantial, you know, cross-training in dental, in like long-term illness management. But the EMT was the core of their training, and it was also a really fast-paced course. But you can skip over that part if you take the EMT elsewhere, or, you know, you can skip over parts of that course. And so I had always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to do EMT. It's that type of high octane, awesome stuff that can like bolster my machismo and make me feel good about myself. But it ended up just being a treasure trove of clinical information to inform my decision to go into medicine.
So actually, that's a really good segue. You guys are here because you want to go into medicine. So how did those clinical experiences for both of you inform your decision on going into medicine? How do they confirm that for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say those experiences just went ahead and taught me, again, I think the basic things like how different members in healthcare work together and understanding their roles, and like how it's, well, a physician does have that leadership role, but it's mostly a team. And to be successful, you need to work in a team and know how to work with different people, different coworkers of different ages, and working with different, you know, types of patients. Of some patients, you know, they're children, some patients are really old, some of them have like different personalities and things like that. So it's just understanding how to work in different situations under pressure. Some situations might be, emotionally demanding. Working in hospice, that has been the case, and that has been really insightful. I guess, like, sort of the preparation of what healthcare looks like and what potentially being a physician might look like. Of course, I think it's different than to have that amount of pressure and that amount of like responsibilities as a physician, but I think those clinical experiences did give me some insight into the realities, and I did end up having a lot of great conversations with, physicians and nurses, and seeing their perspectives and making sure that this is something I really wanted to go into.
So, in addition to really, I guess, shaping how you want to go into medicine, how have those clinical experiences shaped your outlook on healthcare, particularly because you have that experience of being in hospice care? I'm really curious to know about that.
Yeah, so there's so many things I can get into. I think with hospice care, it really sheds a lot of light on just, I guess, working with families, because a lot of them, you do interact with a lot of families, understanding a lot of the myths and misinformation that exist in like healthcare, and learning how to educate patients and their families so they feel a bit better, they feel safe, they can build trust. I think that goes like a long way. Also just navigating, seeing how like insurance affects patients
and like the reality.
Yeah, because I've heard that there are, for example, nursing homes, which Ryan, I think you have that experience of being in nursing homes, that there is a lot of like Medicare fraud, for example.
So your question was about like the reality of medicine that it kind of introduces you to, or say it one more time.
That also, but basically how it's impacted your outlook on healthcare. So I guess when you become physicians,
what are we going to be more cognizant of?
Yeah.
I'll share for myself. So like I was saying, insurance problems kind of derived from my shadowing experience, but seeing how big a role the capitalist arm of medicine is a business. That is something that working in EMS, I realized. There were corners cut in order to turn a profit that came to the detriment of patient care. I once had a hospital administrator chase me out the building, asking me, "What are you going to do with that blanket on top of your patient, my comatose, 90-year-old patient that's out in the freezing cold and, it's overcast?" And, "Oh, well, we usually just donate it to like, puppy shelters or things like that." And she's like, "Next time, can you please leave that?" And like tried to give me a spiel on how many millions it costs the hospital to lose their linens. They're losing linens. Anyways, it's a business. So that's one thing that will become really apparent when you are stuck in the day-to-day, whether working as an EMT and you see the work on the floor, or ED tech, any of these, like, or tech, any kind of tech, these jobs where anything, like if you are close enough to medicine in the United States, you'll start to see through the cracks. There's more, but I think that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, and I also think, like, adding on to that a lot of times, like, because insurance systems are set up the way they are, like, I think over a long-term period of time, that causes, like, patients to feel scared to get the help they need.
That's another one, patient mistrust.
Right, exactly. They're scared of having these additional costs. They don't want to take the ambulance because the ambulance is also really expensive.
Yeah.
So they're putting their health at risk while, trying to make like the month's rent or the month's groceries.
Yeah, emergency procedures for the uninsured or the publicly insured will cost them an arm and a leg. They will have to go into debt to just pay for the ambulance ride. Like, I had a patient one time on 911 that was delirious and jaundiced, and and he was non-ambulatory in a wheelchair, would have rather wheeled himself 2-3 miles to the hospital to get help without any assistance getting there than get in the ambulance. It's because I mean, there's lots of reasons why there's mistrust, but that's one thing uncovered in clinical experiences. AMA or against medical advice, it's going to happen a lot more than you think. And it's not necessarily just people that are delirious or they have psychosis. It's well-oriented people, aware and oriented people that just feel like they're scared. They're scared of the consequences financially and medically, clinically. What are you going to do to them? They don't trust you. And then to finish my thought, you will uncover some rather unscrupulous things that you shouldn't let deter you from going into medicine. Just be aware that that happens.
Thank you so much for sharing both of your guys' experiences. I hope that this is helpful to our viewers. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today on Sedaye Daneshjoo. We will see you next time.